Hello and welcome to another segment of AmericanFreePress.net. I'm Mark Anderson with Across the Nation, and I'm with Dick Heller, who's the well-known litigant in the now almost year-old Heller versus DC case that ended a 30-year gun ban in Washington, D.C. Most gun advocacy groups, including the NRA here at their annual convention in Phoenix, Arizona, see this as a major victory. Thanks for being with me, Dick.
Thank you, Mark. My pleasure.
Yeah, my pleasure too. I understand this has been quite a ride for you. This took root back in the 90s, I understand, 1993 perhaps, and so it's been a long uphill battle. How are you faring since this? How is it going? How was the experience? Where are we at now?
That's an interesting question because you never know how you would be doing had we not done it. But it's been an emotional roller coaster, one of exhilaration for years, thinking we've got to do something. What can we do? You know, it's the thrill of the charge in the hunt, and the accomplishment, maybe, if we can find a solution. And then after we got started and it got serious, then every few days was an up or down ride like a roller coaster. You know, you think you're on the path to going right to the Supreme Court, and then you trip over something and it takes 3 weeks or a year, even in cases, to recover or to re-implement a new legal strategy. So it's been, and since I'm not knowledgeable in any way about the law, we had absolutely nothing. We had absolutely nothing to guide us in preparation for the ups and downs that we've gone through, and the legal hurdles that came, and how do you recover. It was just totally incomprehensible at the time.
How did the city, or the District of Columbia, react to this when the ruling went in your favor? Did they say, okay, the gun ban's been thrown out, now guns are no longer banned?
In my dreams, in our free society's fantasy world, yes. No, they started eating sour pickles and said, you have your individual rights, but we have gun control. And I'm going...
So they haven't given up much ground?
Nothing, if they didn't have to. I mean, they've controlled everything from bullet count to color of gun to misclassifying semi-automatics as machine guns until we fought back with Heller 2 case, and that got over. They relinquished that particular one.
Heller 2 case, when was that?
That was filed, Heller 2A was filed in July of 08, right after the Supreme Court decision. We had to, because they said, we're giving you nothing except the right to own it.
So you had your June 23rd, 08 Supreme Court decision, but since then, since that famous Heller versus DC case, they're basically fighting you every step of the way.
Every step of the way.
But you're establishing legal precedent, you're putting it out there, you're showing how they ban guns, and that doesn't really reduce, if anything, it increases crime in our own nation's capital. And now we'll bring in your legal helper here. And Dane, I'm going to let you pronounce your name.
It's vonBreichenruchardt.
Dane vonBreichenruchardt. I think I did it. Speak kind of loudly. Dane, real briefly, just kind of tell us for AmericanFreePress.net, what is the legal landscape here? Where are we going now since this landmark Supreme Court decision?
Well, as you know, we prevailed on the initial case.
Yes.
And then we filed immediately after because the city refused to register any semi-automatic handguns, and they also left this draconian requirement in place where the gun has to be disassembled, trigger locked, and unloaded until a threat is assessed. And if you assess that there's a threat, then you can assemble your gun and load it and use it against your assailant. So we filed on that, but it never went to court. The city backed off. However, since then they have arbitrarily just picked the California list of approved and unapproved guns that can be registered, and they just adopted that list, and it has no rhyme or reason. Certain guns are not allowed to be registered just for cosmetics. For instance, we have a Colt 45 automatic, which is perfectly registrable, but because they wrote on it Series 70, which was the model number that particular year, for some reason the city just said we're not going to register it, and when you ask them why, they can't give you an answer.
So that gun is just not allowed?
Just not allowed, and yet its companion gun, which is the exact same gun made on the same assembly line, same everything, it doesn't have etched on it Series 70, it just says Colt 45, they will allow that.
So even though we had this landmark decision, they don't want to give up much of any ground.
No, they're just making it as hard. What they're doing, it is so obvious because of the things that they are choosing to make it difficult. The timing, having to go back and forth, the fees that you have to pay, 4 hours of classroom work, which gives you no safety training on the range at all, because there are no ranges in the District of Columbia, but they're still requiring 4 hours of training. I don't know what you're going to do with those 4 hours.
Can you conceal carry there? Is that
no? Concealed carry is an absolute. If you can't even take the gun out of the house to go to a shooting range outside the city, you have to either trigger lock it, disassemble it. Bullets have to be in a completely different place, and you have to carry a special permit, and you have to drive directly out of the city.
And when we all know that criminals, they follow all these rules to the T. We know this, of course,
I'm sure
for sure.
Do. Yeah.
Now, to summarize, what is the good part about Heller versus DC? That's we're coming on the 1-year anniversary, as I noted. What is the main part of it that's very positive, despite all this fighting back by the city and all this hair-splitting rules?
Well, what it has done is the Supreme Court, for the first time in 70 years, almost 70 years, agreed that the Second Amendment is a fundamental, enumerated individual right.
An individual
right, not a collective right. No.
Not some militia or abstraction.
Absolutely. It's totally a right of the individual to have.
So it's the principle that it established more than the tangible benefits that should come in D.C. itself, because that entrenched city regime is just not going to give up any more ground than they have to.
Right. What's particularly interesting about this is that the court made it clear that the District of Columbia were to register the guns that are in the common use of the day. Okay, that's the language that came out of this. And those firearms that are in the common use of the day include most of the guns that they disallow. In other words, they disallow the guns. For instance, we're here at the charter booth, and if you notice a couple of those pistols over there have these anodized color, pink and blue, those pastel colors, as you can see them from here. What's interesting is that all of those, they will not register in the District of Columbia, because the District of Columbia says it has to either be silver or black.
So you can't have a designer pistol?
Can't have a designer pistol.
Well, gentlemen, this has been very interesting. We know we've established a good precedent and a good principle with Heller versus D.C. The landmark Supreme Court decision coming up June 23rd of 2009. It'll be its 1-year anniversary. Dick Heller, whose name we know it by, and Dane.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for being with me, and we've heard their explanation of this here on AmericanFreePress.net. See the accompanying article on our online version and in our hard copy. We'll see you next time online.